Hello, boys and girls. This is Danny Rhythmic from Marbin. Welcome to Daily Tips, Noodles, and Shredding, episode 4. Alright, so this time I'm going to spend some time talking about a question I get a lot, which is a big question and a hard question, so it's going to require a philosophical explanation, and it's how to practice, what to practice. Okay, so to me it starts with what not to do. And what kind of person you don't want to be. Now, there's a few wrong approaches, and I think it's, to start off with the thing I see the most in this generation, it's the less is more people. And, you know, I don't have a problem with simplicity. I think it's great. I do think that a lot of the people that adopt that philosophy adopt it from a place of shame, laziness, and ignorance, not from a true love for simplicity. But, you know, I understand also that, like, you know, in this generation, the mass audience has become pretty stupid. You know, if you think about lullabies, okay? You know, da-da-da, ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba. If you're born in 18-something, that was your lullaby, right? Think about it. It has motifs, has structure, da-da-da, da-da-da, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. You know what I mean? That was music for babies back then. Now, music for teenagers is Justin Bieber. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That's 3 notes. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. One rhythmic idea. So, music has digressed from baby level over 200 years to, I don't know what. This is music for, like, I don't know, like kittens. I don't know what it's for. So if you judge things by what the mass audience likes and wants, you're obviously making music that's so simplistic that there's no point in studying or practicing. Just write what's in your head. It's so pedestrian that literally every pedestrian, you know, it's like taking the thing that people whistle or hum out of their heads as they're walking down the street, the simplest melodies, you know, putting an epic drum beat to it. So, you know, it's just, you know, there's nothing to it. So we should aspire for more. So think back to those times 200 years ago, right? The world, day-to-day living was much harder, but you had to understand everything that was around you, right? You had a hammer, I don't know what you had, maybe a screwdriver, a spatula. The tools were simple. And I think that from people understanding their surrounding, when it came to music, they wanted something more. It was like a place that was supposed to drag you outside of this day-to-day living of objects you understand functions of into like a world. Bach, Beethoven, like all these things, you know, even the folk music of the time, harmonies were complicated, like Russian folk music, all this stuff. There's a lot going on. Indian music is like rhythmically complicated, you know. So music really filled this technological function almost. Now we have iPhones. I don't understand how to make any of the things I use every day, or, you know, how they're constructed, even theoretically. I don't get it. I don't know. So it's very easy when it's my downtime to kind of go after something that's very simple to understand, a 3-note thing. Now, I love getting high and listening to Bob Marley just like the next guy. But, you know, I definitely need to turn off a big chunk of my brain to really be in it. You know what I mean? It's like when I'm just listening to music actively, I've done that. I can't listen to music that I can transcribe without every part that's going on. I've trained myself to pick apart music. Now, musicians, we don't listen to music the same way the audience does. The reason they like it so much is because we don't. You know, it's they hear it. For them, music is like this air blowing on them, and it activates their humanity. There's something, emotional things, wild things are happening in there. If you went the path of understanding music, you're never going to have that again. You know, it's like that, and that's where the thing itself happens, the real thing. But between the music and the listener, between the music and the maker is kind of like, you know, the backdrop. It's what's happening backstage, and that's where you're at, and you got to commit to it. You will never be a part of the audience again. That's the price you pay. You're not going to feel it that way. You're going to feel it your own way. And the deeper you sink back, the more distance between you and your music, the deeper it is. That's the depth of the art. And you do it through learning. You do it through developing, you know, and you have to commit to spending a lot of time every day acquiring tools. And that's what practicing is. And to me, when you practice, it's kind of like going on a trip, right? To somewhere, to Spain. Like practicing C Lydian, you know, maybe that's India. You know what I mean? It's like it has the sound to it. It doesn't matter that, you know, 100,000 people are taking the same trip. You're taking a trip. You're physically spending time there. And when you're walking around, you're going to find things. You're going to see things. Even if you look at the same thing somebody else is looking at, you're going to see it in a different way, right? And you take home what you take home. It's like you've spent the time there. Now, a misconception about practicing is that you're going to spend 10 years practicing, get real good, and then start doing music. It doesn't work like that. There's people around you, and music is for people. You write music, you perform music all the time, ideally. That's what you need to do. And those trips you take in the day, you know, think about it like a walk or something, is where you grab some stuff out from the world, right? Practicing is going to visit the external world with your mind. And you take little pieces back with you, like this little piece of C Lydian, this little piece of C Dorian, this little piece of a rhythmic thing, this vibrato, you know, and you put it in your music every day. Eventually it will accumulate. Now, the people who don't get better, they don't get better because they're ashamed and then they lie. What do I mean by that? You say, oh, didn't you go to Spain? And they didn't go to Spain. They were just at home. You know what I mean? They're like, oh yeah, I was in Spain. It was great. What'd you find there? And then they make up shit, you know? It's like you can get into a place where you're holding the instrument and moving your fingers and very little of your mind is actually exploring a subject. Now, to practice properly, you need to set parameters, right? You can't, unless you're like really a wild kind of person that can really handle it, you know, you need to know kind of where you're going, right? You know, I guess you can go on like a hobo trip, hop trains, that's cool too. But you know, for most people, you need like a minimal structure just for a while. Like, you know, say I'm gonna practice at 60 BPM doing C Dorian just to get the notes down. Then you get the notes down. It's like, okay, now I'm gonna play a sequence through that thing. Now I'm gonna play it backwards. Now I'm gonna see how it fits over this groove. Now I'm gonna see how it fits over that song. You know, just move around in the space, maneuver. That's the whole thing. If you spend a lot of time there, you'll be able to extract the pieces that you're ready for. And now let's talk practice schedules. I don't have any. I did have some when I was really small, like when I was just starting when I was like 16, you know? And I would regiment half-hour sweep picking, 30 minutes alternate picking, like this. But I don't think it was an effective way. I think it was, you know, my childish mind thinking that it can somehow facilitate the scope of all it, because the scope of what there is was so overwhelming, you know, that I had to kind of manage my time in a certain way, because I felt like doing, you know, a certain amount of it every day is gonna be a good idea. I don't believe that anymore. I think that you should really be in touch with what you want to do. You know what I mean? Like, if you really deeply want to go and play Xbox, by all means, play Xbox. You know? You shouldn't be a guitarist. You know, you should play Xbox. Do what you want to do. But if you want to play guitar, you know, then play guitar. And if you're curious about a sound, then follow that thing, you know? If you heard some Mixolydian thing and you really liked it, but your practice regimen says this is alternate picking time, no, man, listen to that Lydian thing, do that Lydian thing, or that Mixolydian thing. Follow the ideas, you know what I mean, as they come. If in the middle of the thing you're like, oh, look at this little shape inside, go with that. Go from thing to thing, as long as your mind is there. Now, it's good to take breaks when your mind stops being there. You know what I mean? If you practiced for an hour and let's say your mind is fried and you just see your fingers moving, have a drink, go to the bathroom, get back to it when you're ready to be in it again. You know, that's how you learn. It's from concentrating. And from really enjoying the trip and understanding that, you know, that being present inside that thing is how you learn. And if you don't do it, you're not going to learn. So that's my advice on that. The other thing is that never be ashamed of what you don't know yet. And always admit it if you're called out. I don't understand. But if somebody says, play C blah, 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 you know, like, I don't know, Lydian dominant. Say, I don't know what that is. That will be an opportunity to learn. You know? In Marbin, I had the great luck of having, you know, Danny Markovich with me from the get-go with brutal honesty. Now, I know, especially you Americans, you can play the wackest shit and nobody's ever going to tell you. Living in America is crazy. You can have a dick on your forehead, walk down the street. Nobody's going to, hey, it's a dick on his forehead. We don't come from that kind of culture. You know, everybody would huddle around you. It's like, oh my God, he has a dick on his forehead. You know? So honesty goes a long way. If you're surrounded by people that when you play a really terrible solo are going to go like, yeah, man, yeah, then you're in deep shit. You know, that's a problem. For me, if I play one wrong note and I look over at Danny, he has a look like this on the saxophone, like, you know, after each show, there's like what we call the Marbin shit talk, where you get shat on, you know, for every bad thing you did. It's how I grew up, you know. I don't know any other way. And really, it's why we don't have a lot of musician friends anymore, because we're used to saying, you know, to telling people how they sound, which can be frightening if you're not used to it. We've learned to live in America a little bit. We don't do it as much as we used to, but we used to do it, you know. But to each other, there's brutal honesty. And the thing is, it comes from the deep notion that I think you have to believe in it to become good. And this is this. If good exists, then bad exists. And I believe that objectively there is good and bad music. Okay? Now, this is not a new agey approach. This is not popular right now. Most people will say that everything's the same but different. Everything is apples and oranges. I don't believe that. For me, there's music that activates something inside me and music that doesn't. And there's much more music that doesn't than music that does. You know? And it could be my shitty perspective. That's fine. But I really do feel it. You know, that's a part of the way I see the world. And I do agree that on the highest level, on the highest echelon of players, there's a lot of ways to get there. There's a lot of variation. Like, is Charlie Parker better than Coltrane, better than Django, better than Louis Armstrong? I don't know. So far high up there, I can see how it's arguable. But is Charlie Parker better than Dexter Gordon? Absolutely. You know what I mean? Is Buddy Rich better than the guy from Blink 182? Yes. That's how I see the world. I know some people will disagree. Now, a lot of people also will say, well, is Charlie Parker better than Bob Marley? You know, and absolutely he is. But you have to understand that there are different paradigms. And it's really, to kind of compare those things is misunderstanding what we're doing here. And the idea of jazz is that songs have open sections that are predetermined only harmonically and in terms of groove, rhythmically. And then a human gets to be expressive. Why? Because when you give a human that's skilled expressive freedom, he can do amazing things. He can ignite, you know? And that's the whole idea of jazz, to give people that opportunity that doesn't exist in written music, you know? They knew it in Indian music forever. They just kind of did it over a drone, and I can't listen to that shit. It's like fucking crazy, you know? 40 minutes of like, whoa, yo, yo, yo. I don't know. I didn't, it's not a part of my palette. I mean, I appreciate it. I checked it out severely, you know, but to me, like this American idea of how it's done that came from blues, over like a 12-bar blues started and then grew up, you know, kind of over musical forms, that was the thing to aspire to have this freedom harmonically, to be expressive harmonically and rhythmically, and, you know, put all your stuff in. So what I recommend is sitting back and asking yourself a simple question. What is good and what is bad? I believe at the end, it's objective. I think that your subjective belief, if it kind of tunes itself correctly, will lead you to that place, you know? And, you know, the way to get there is just listening and really asking yourself, what do I like? Not what do the rest of these people around me like. You see lost people, and lost people are the ones that keep searching for that good and bad thing in their bandmates, in their audience, even worse. I had the worst problem. I would play with my eyes open, and I would look into the audience, and, you know, sometimes in the first row there would be like a person looking right back at me, and I didn't know if they like it or not. You know, if I'm the audience at a concert, I probably look like I'm suffering when I'm actually listening. I'm just sitting like there, like, you know, I have no expression. I have no way of like telling them I like it. But I would look into the audience, and in the visual connection with somebody that's there to listen to you, you get into this horrible negative kind of loop, because, you know, they're there in this kind of music to see you make some sort of connection with yourself, to go internally and bring out music that comes from a deep place, and then in that thing, pass through the sound, they get it inside their body and they can go deeper inside. But once you lock eyes with somebody, they give up their thing and you give up your thing, and you're just two dudes, you know, or a guy and a girl just sitting there looking at each other. You know, the whole flow, the whole connection is broken. So deeply, when you improvise or when you write songs, what you need to go do is kind of go inside. Ask yourself, what is good? What is emotional? What's a good song? What's a good melody? Why is it good? Ask these questions. How does it make me feel when I hear it? Where does it need to go? You know? So writing and practicing and all this stuff, to me, have to be always kind of tied to that place of what good is. And if you don't know, then take a break and think about it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you should know everything that's good or everything that's bad at once, but ask yourself about specific melodies. You know, if everything is good, then nothing is good. You know what I mean? There has to be a hierarchy. That's a nice melody. That's a great melody. You know what I mean? Like you listen to the Gymnopédies by Satie. It's like, that's fucking epic, simple melody, right? Or Louis Armstrong playing La Vie en Rose. That's epic way of playing that song. Charlie Parker's solo on Now's the Time. That's fucking, the amount of great shit in there is like incredible, right? So, and we all have, you know, these things we like the most. If you don't like any of the shit I said, that's fine, you know, some other shit, but shit that has some content, some things that touch you, you know, like if it's metal or polka, whatever. It's like, I'm sure there's jams in there. I'm not saying my taste in music is the authority, but I think that the things that guide me to the things that I like in music are absolute. You know what I mean? They're it's because some things about them are objectively good. It's an objectively good way, pleasing way aesthetically of doing things, like playing rhythmically well, you know, kind of placing your notes a certain way, playing with a great sound, using tons of articulation, interesting phrasing. And now the last thing I'm going to say about the whole rhythm thing, or the rhythm thing, the less is more thing, you know, Malmsteen had this great saying, how can less be more? More is more. Love that. But, you know, when you play more, when you know how to subdivide a beat into smaller pieces, right? You have more options. It's that simple. And interesting playing in an improvised setting has to do with rhythmic diversity. When you listen to Parker play, or Coltrane play, they can do a lot of stuff to a beat, and they go back and forth between these subdivisions, and it creates a really, really interesting story that feels very rich. It's like an author that has a huge vocabulary. You know what I mean? When you just can divide into quarter notes, eighth notes, triplets, and 16th notes like most people, well, you know, you get stuck really early in the game. You kind of quarter notes, you know, you have 4 of them in a measure. You either play it or don't play it, you know what I mean? Those are your spaces. Triplets, you have 12 places to play, and 16th notes, you have 16 places to play, but a lot of them cancel each other out. So you don't have a lot of choices of where to place your notes. And rhythm, as most of you know, is everything. And if you're not telling the story of the rhythm, you know, if you're not telling a story with your rhythms, if you're not developing, then, you know, it gets repetitive and it gets boring, you know, and there's not enough complexity to survive repeat listenings. And since we're in a day and age where recordings matter and people don't see you live every day, I think you have to compact a certain amount of complexity melodically into what you do to where it becomes interesting for repeat listening. Anyway, I hope that helps. I think there's some things in there, especially about how to practice and how to go about spending time a day inside the subjects and defining the parameters that you really got to get into if you want to see the results. Alrighty, I'm Danny Rubin from Marbin. Come to this fall tour. All the dates are on benzintown.com/Marbin. Thank you so much.